It is Tuesday, the Ides of January 2013, meaning it is the 15th of January, and this is Daily D&D. Hey guys, welcome to Daily D&D. Glad to see so many people here. Lol, as if people watch my stuff. Yeah, don't you be raising your hand unless you liked or commented a video. Which I don't think you did, even though I asked for it, so you don't get to raise your hand.
Sorry.
That's not just for her, this is for you guys too. You know, like and comment so that I know that people are watching this. Because it makes me all feel warm inside, and it lets me know that people care about this topic and that my message is getting out. Okay, on to today's topic. Today's topic is nerfing and buffing on the fly. In our encounter, we were fighting something that was way over our heads. We were an encounter that was meant for 6 people. It had been dropped down to 4 people due to scheduling and circumstances and whatnot. And it happens in D&D a lot. You know, it's probably once a month on my Thursday group that we have everybody there. And, you know, I have yet to see everybody for our online group, mainly because last week I wasn't able to make it. Or, I keep saying last week, but the week previous, Game 3, I was not able to be there. So, yeah, count me as one of the guilty ones. But, you know, it's important for DMs to be able to take what comes to the table, who comes to the table, and be able to have the story tailored to these people. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you come up with a fairly elaborate monsters for them to fight, and then only 2 people show up, and so you can't use your super elaborate combat because there's, you know, the people are going to just be mutilated, and that's not a good thing. Players don't like being mutilated unless they know they absolutely deserve it, which they rarely do, but, you know, it happens. So, what can you do? And, well, let's look at it on the flip side. Sometimes when you have a, you know, what should be a fairly easy encounter or medium difficulty encounter, sometimes you have 2 or 3 new people who, you know, are coming to try D&D out for the first time, and, you know, you don't want it to be a cakewalk for them. How do you make this combat work? The first thing to do, and this is, you know, I said this was nerfing and buffing on the fly. This isn't really on the fly, it's preparing for on the fly. What you need to do is you need to give yourself a bit of leeway. Think to yourself, well, if we have all 6 people, maybe I'll put 5 of these things in. But if we don't have that many people, maybe I'll drop down to, you know, just 2. And, you know, make the number and the strength of your monsters that you have flexible. Tailor the combat encounters to be flexible before you start. That being said, combat is started. You have 3 Jackal Marauders, or Null Marauders. I keep calling them Jackals, because we had fought Jackals before. 3 Jackal Marauders, which are level 6 against 4 level 3 guys, and they're just wailing, and they've knocked out the wizard already. And you realize that this is going to be really tough for the party. What can you do? First thing, I came up with 3 things, in general, that you can do. The first thing that I came up with is you subtly go down to their hit points where you're keeping track, and subtract, you know, a number. A number that sounds reasonable. About a healing surge worth is probably a good, just general, hey, I want to make them so that they were, you know, a little bit wounded before. And so then suddenly the Jackals aren't as scary because instead of 3 times the player's hit points, they only have 2 times the player's hit points, and it's totally, you know, worth it. When the players have landed like 3 or 4 good solid hits on something and it's not bloodied, that guy had better be a solo, or the party is probably going to die. So, you know, if the fight looks like it's going to be too tough, you know, casually take off extra hit points, or give it vulnerable 1 to the player's attacks if you don't want to just take off a ton of hit points for no real reason. And just make it so that the player's attacks deal that little bit more damage, which, you know, doesn't seem like much, but when you land 5 attacks on something and it's got 100 hit points, that's, you know, 1/20th, 5% of its health, with just 1 for each attack. I don't know, I'm making up numbers right here. But this is something to do, something you can think of. And when you have really big monsters, it really speeds up the combat when things die quickly. You know, we know that we can sit through and slog through hours and hours of combat. Our characters might be able to do that, but us as players don't want to. We want to get to the meat of the story. D&D isn't about killing things. It's just about, trying to find ways to kill things. I guess. That wasn't quite what I wanted. I need to rework that and come up with something a little bit more guru sounding. The second thing I came up with is a DMS machina, is how I want to call it. Something happens that you can tell is the DM making something happen. And this can be, a flight of dragons, flies across the sky, and one of them lets out a casual belch, and the grassland catches fire behind the gnolls, and, they suddenly have to run away. This could be a lightning bolt coming down from the sky. This could be a prayer that somebody made being called in. There's a lot of different things, and the thing about this thing is it's extremely obvious. There's something happening that's entirely outside of the player's control and outside of the player's standard experience that is happening, and they know it's your fault. And so there's not much you can do to disguise that. And there's a lot of things that this would cover, and a lot of, interesting ideas that you can do in a story. Maybe a band of paladins ride up on their chargers, see these evil creatures, going to town on the party of adventurers, and they charge over the hill, and suddenly you get to have a social interaction with a bunch of paladins, because that sounds really cool. That sounds much cooler than the gnolls just, finally succumbing to the mad gnoll disease and keeling over dead. Whatever. There's a lot of different things to do, and, it's good to have, a list of things that might tie in later into the campaign that you want to run. That might be good, that you could foreshadow to save the players' lives, if needed. The third thing that I wanted to bring up has slipped my mind twice already, and it's doing so again. It is, a social encounter. There we go. So the gnolls see that they have people be, and it might, I don't know about gnolls if this would be good. Maybe some blackguards could be a good thing of doing this. But the bad guys have the party on the ropes, and the leader waves to his people and says, "Hold! If you will stand down and be our prisoners, we will spare your miserable, wretched lives." And this gives a chance for people to, catch a breath from sucking in combat, because normally that's what's happening when this needs to go on. And, you can always say, yes, take us captive, we'll come quietly, and then break out later. Because that's the type of thing you can do when you've got a lot of really, really talented people. And that makes it, that takes them from a combat encounter that they can't win to a social encounter that they might be able to do some interesting stuff in, into a skill challenge of, hey, we're all captured, what random powers and feats do you guys have that can get you untied, out of the, out of prison, and across the wall before the guards come? And then people start thinking about their characters and their powers that were useless in combat not too long before, and suddenly they're able to say, hey, we can do this, and this, and this. And that's how brilliant ideas come, from putting characters in situations that they really can't get out of, and that the game mechanics don't pigeonhole into saying, yep, you're in an encounter. It's combat. There's not much you can do. You can win or you can die, neither or. So those are things that you can do to nerf the foes. And, it's not really quite nerfing. It's just ways to make it so that the combat encounter isn't going to kill the players. And, hey, remember, if the blackguard says surrender or die, and the players say, no, we won't ever surrender, that's an invitation that the party is making to kill the party. And you should not feel guilty about that. Some parties just need to die. A glorious total party kill is a much, much, much better story than we fought in one encounter for 6 hours, and we finally got through, it just sucked. But yeah, if the party dies, hey, the party's dead. Oh well, long live the party, everyone roll out new characters. You guys just heard of a band of adventurers that disappeared in the desert with some gnoll marauders. Do you guys wish to investigate? You can have the party go and avenge their own deaths. That's always fun. Right, moving on to buffing in combat. This is the opposite side. When the party is much stronger and they're able to come up with some tactics or whatever it is that you didn't expect. And a lot of the tricks that you can do are, frankly, just the opposite. In one encounter I was running, I had this guy who wasn't supposed to die. He was wearing I can't remember who referred to it as, but he was wearing plot armor. He was not going to die no matter what they threw at him. And so I gave him, very, very cleverly, in my notes, I gave him an amulet of resistance. So he had resist 20 to all attacks made against him. And his turn started. He was attacked 7 times and took 320 damage with that amulet on. If he hadn't had that amulet on, then he would have had another 140 damage on top of him. It was insane, and it wasn't even the player's turn yet. They just had a bard who said, yeah, everyone make charge attacks. And, a couple of guys who were charge build and say, aha, when we charge, we get extra damage. And they just pile onto my guy, who was supposed to just say, haha, you'll never catch me, and then vanish into a wood house, and then trees come alive and attack the players. It wasn't a well-thought-out encounter, but I was getting towards the end where you need to start wrapping things up. So yeah, it was insane what the players are able to do to it. And so one of the tricks that I did, knowing that something like this might happen, is I gave him the amulet of resist 20 damage, which helped a bit, but it wasn't quite enough. So that is one thing that you can do. Give the monsters a resistance to damage, or just give them a healing effect. The players don't get to see the monster stat cards. I mean, yeah, if they've played enough D&D, they know in general what things have. If they've run that monster before in one of their campaigns, they know some things. However, what you can do is you can pencil in a power that says, hey, once an encounter, as a standard action, spend a healing surge. What, the monster just used second wind? Okay. And suddenly the monster is more scary because, hey, it just healed. It just got better. I wish I could do that instead of having to attack every turn to try and kill it. And so, yeah, if you need to make it to effectively kill something the party can do, yeah, give them a power, give them an aura. A website down below, slyflourish.net. If you go to his site and check out his book, Running Epic Tier Campaigns, he's got a lot of stuff on this, on how to, more tiered towards epic characters. But, the things that it says in there for strikers and defenders and all of this are still true for a lot of other people. For a lot of other tiers, the other 2 tiers, really. And so, use that to your advantage, and you can find, he's got a lot of stuff on his blog about reworking monsters to give them auras and a bunch of useful stuff. And hey, when you're making monsters for your campaign or looking up monsters for your campaign, feel free to reskin. This is a cool, slightly technical term of where you say, man, this, Goblin Archer would be awesome, but too bad he's not a gnoll. Well, do you know how to make him a gnoll? You cross out the word goblin and you write gnoll on top of it, and then when you describe him, you don't use the goblin's description, you use the gnoll's description. I pronounce it gnoll so people know how to spell it. Yeah. So, yeah, reskinning is a very, very useful tool. One of our DMs, Kevin, wanted to have these gigantic spiders. No, these gigantic scorpions that these camel people rode on. But there's no monster like that in D&D, so he took like this whiplash spider and just described it as this huge scorpion, and it worked totally well. Especially for my little dwarf who was totally terrified and wouldn't ride on them. You can also, going back to my list, 2? Sure, we're on number 2 for buffing. Use the DMX machina. Latin, combining Latin words with real phrases sucks. But yeah. You can use DM powers to boost your monsters. Hey, these guys have just beaten up a band of goblins? What's that over the hill? Another band of goblins! And so suddenly the encounter just doubles in size, and the players aren't feeling so hot because they just used up all their encounter powers and maybe some daily powers on the previous guys, and when these monsters come riding down the hill, well, now they're not as in shape as they were, since their last short rest. They need that 5-minute break, and the less you give them that 5-minute break, the quicker they will go down. Another thing is you can, and a lot of things you can do with the DMX Machina. It's the exact same thing, just for the opposite side. And the third thing is change the encounter type. Works just the same. You know, you've got these goblins, most of them are being slain. Have the goblin warlord get down on his knees in front of the fighter and say, "Please don't kill me." And then make it into a social encounter and see if the fighter kills him anyway. Well, if he kills him anyway, well, what does that mean? That means that he just slaughtered a creature that had surrendered. Maybe that's against his personal creed. Hey, I'm sure, Groomish, I think, is the 4th edition god of goblins. I'm not entirely sure on that. But hey, I'm pretty sure that goblin's god might want to know that, hey, the supposedly good character just murdered one of his warlords. That's the type of thing that you bring up at Divine Tete-a-Tetes. And so there's a lot of ramifications. I can't believe I got through that word without messing it up. That can go on for the character's actions once the monsters try to make it a social interaction with the players on top. And hey, maybe the goblins say something, "Look, we'll give you the gold if you leave us alone." And that stops the slayer as he's coming down. He's like, "Gold?" And like, "Yep, big, huge chest full of it. I couldn't even lift it. It's over that way. Listen, we're going to go this way, you go that way, and you'll be fine." And so if the players go and investigate, hey, there's a room full of gold in here, the goblins leave, and then it turns out that there's like a large dragon, whatever, I don't know, that's up to you. But, you know, don't let the players absolutely slaughter your monsters unless you want them to be slaughterable, and on the flip side, don't slaughter the players unless you really want to. I suppose that isn't extremely good advice, just do what you want, unless you want to, but keep in mind what your players are feeling, because that's an important thing as a DM, that you're not catering to you or the story, you're catering to the players. You are there to entertain them, and while you're doing that, you can have a little bit of fun on the way. If you have any questions or comments about this, please, please, please write them down below. Also, if you liked the video, hit the like button, and if you know anyone who needs to see it, there's a share button down there somewhere too. If you like getting yourself a daily dose of D&D, click on the subscribe button that is probably also located below if you're on the YouTube homepage, and doing so will allow me to come to your YouTube subscription box every day. And that's all I really have to say about that. My name is Mehmet Wankow. This has been your daily dose of D&D. You guys stay online, and I will see you next time.